In this video, we're going to use 5 LEDs to make a rainbow. This is the 8th video in a set of 10 for people beginning their journey with the JackBord Basic top. For this video, you're going to need one JackBord Basic, one JackBord Basic top, 15 female-to-female jumper wires, one USB-C cable, and either a PC or a Chromebook to provide the power for the circuit. So this is the circuit that we're going to build, and while it looks complicated, it's actually pretty simple. Again, we start off with a 3 volt power source, we go into a jumper, then we go into a 1K resistor. So the challenging part with this circuit is that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 LEDs, and we want to power them all from the same 1K resistor and power supply. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the user pins that are located on the JackBord Basic itself. And the way these work is, you see you've got A, B, C, D, and E columns of pins, and then each column has 5 pins. So the thing to remember is that all of the pins in column A are joined together. And you can see that here. So there's a wire that goes all the way through, so they're all joined together. And likewise, all the pins in column B are also joined together. So B1 is connected to B5. But the pins in column A are not connected to the pins in column B. But we need that because we need to be able to connect up all of these lights. So what we do is we use a jumper here to literally connect pin A1 to pin B1. And that gives us a total of 8 pins, this group here, that are all connected together. And if you look, they all have 3 volts on them. So we can then use them to power our LEDs. And then the rest of the circuit is the same as before. We have the red LED, green, blue, yellow, white, goes through the LED, and then we need 5 ground connections. Because this circuit's reasonably complex, it's got a lot of wires, we're going to have a look at a 3D version. So the first thing we notice is we've got the 3 volt wire jumper coming into the pin 1 on the 1K resistor, so that's over here. And then pin number 2 comes out of this jumper and essentially goes into our user pins. And this is where we've effectively got 10 pins that are all connected together, and they're all carrying 3 volts from this 1K resistor. So if I tilt back over this way, we now have 5 jumpers, and I've deliberately made them so that the color of the jumper matches the color of the LED. So the red one is red, the green one is green, the blue one's blue, etc. So you can see these are the 5 power jumpers going to connect to the LEDs on this side. And then if we pan over to the other side, we have our 5 ground jumpers, which are needed for the ground pins of the LEDs. So essentially, this is how the built-up finished circuit will look. And finally, if we look up here, you can see that single jumper which is connecting the 5 pins in A, or the A group of pins, to the 5 pins in the B group. So essentially that's giving us a total of 10 pins that are all connected together, of which we can use 8. Okay, we've got our jumper wires, so let's start building this. So the first thing we're going to do is going to get the 3 volts going into the 1K resistor. So that's the pin 1 on the 1K resistor. And then the next thing we need to do is get pin 2 connected to pin A2 of the user pins. And remember, these user pins are all connected vertically but not horizontally. So all of the A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pins are connected together, but they're not connected to the B pins. So once we've done that, we need to get 2 sets of pins connected together here because we've got 5 LEDs we want to control. So if I'm going to put a jumper between pin A1 and pin B1, that means now I've got these 8 pins here that are all connected together, so they've all got 3 volts on them. So the next thing we're going to do is we want to get some jumper wires to go from here into our LEDs, so let's do that. It doesn't really matter the order that you do it, just as long as you get them all in there. So I'm just going to go along. And you'll probably need to use the longer jumper wires for this job. So I'm just going to put 5 in. Doesn't matter what color they are. I don't care that much about the order, just so long as at the end there are 5 in there. I'll move on to the B set of pins because I've run out of A's. Get that in there. And finally, the last one, the white LED. And voila. So now the last bit we need to do are the grounds. And we need 5 of them. So again, I'm just going to connect them. The order doesn't really matter, just as long as they all end up in ground. And the colors don't matter either. Again, it's the connection that counts. Okay, I should have moved that one to that side. Get another one in. So I'm putting all the ground wires in. Last ground wire. So this is my built circuit. So essentially, it looks like a lot of wires, but it's pretty easy. The first one is we've got 3 volts coming into the 1K resistor. Then pin 2 of the 1K resistor is going over to our user pins, where we're creating 8 that are all 3 volts, all onto this line. And then those 5, we're getting 5 of them come out, and they're going to power the plus side of the LEDs. And then finally we've got 5 connections going to ground. So this is our completed circuit. Now that you've built the circuit, just check your connections against these pictures here, and you can also rewind back in the video and have a look at the 3D version as well. Again, the colors of the wires don't really matter, just as long as the connections are okay. Okay, so now that we've built it and we've checked it, let's plug the power into the basic and see what happens. Now you see we've only got 3 of the LEDs have lit up, and what that means is that we're not getting enough power to power up all of the LEDs. So right now we're running it from the 3 volt power supply. So if I move this wire over to the 5 volt power supply, you see all of the LEDs come on. And that's because with the 5 volts you've got an extra 2 volts of power to provide enough energy for all of the LEDs to work. So if we go back to 3 volts, only 3 of them are lit up. But if we go back to 5 volts, they all light up. And so that goes down to how much current can be provided to the LEDs from the wires. So here we have our 5 LED rainbow. So the reason that the 3 volts is not enough to power all of these LEDs is because, unlike everything else we've done, whereby you've had a 1K resistor supplying 1 LED, all of a sudden this same 1K resistor has to supply 5 LEDs. So you've got 5 times the amount of power needed, and that's why 2 of them don't light up. But then if I've got 2 choices, I can either add more power, which is what I've done here. I'm just putting 5 volts in instead of 3. But the other choice is I can reduce the amount of resistance. So if I was to remove the 1K resistor altogether and just power them directly from 3 volts, you can see they're much, much brighter because we don't have that extra resistor in there. And you'll notice on the board there are some resistors, and they protect the LEDs in cases like this where we're powering them directly from the power and we've got no resistor in series. But by removing the 1K, now all of a sudden we can power all 3 of them perfectly well on just 3 volts. So just to summarize, the 1K resistor provides a limit on the amount of current. And so with the 1K resistor there isn't enough current to run all of the LEDs. But if I remove the 1K and I power directly from 3 volts, because we don't have that resistance in there, all of the LEDs can light up. In the next video, we're going to add a switch to the 5 LED rainbow so we can turn it on and off. To jump to the video directly, just enter the TMT code shown on the screen at the search prompt at jb.works. For more information and to get help, visit jb.works.